Fort Cornwallis, situated in Georgetown, Penang, Malaysia, stands as the oldest and largest fort in the country, representing a significant historical and cultural landmark. Its origins date back to the 17th of July, 1786, when Captain Francis Light, a British naval officer and the founder of Penang, first set foot on the island. After securing Penang Island from the Sultan of Kedah, Light quickly recognized the strategic importance of fortifying his position against potential threats, such as pirates and forces from Kedah. He initially constructed a simple stockade made of nibong palms at the precise location where he had landed. This rudimentary structure marked the inception of what would become Fort Cornwallis. Named in honor of Charles, Marquis Cornwallis, the then Governor-General of India and Commander-in-Chief of British India. Cornwallis is notably remembered for his involvement in the American Revolutionary War, particularly his defeat at the Battle of Yorktown in 1781. Which contributed to the recognition of the United States independence. By 1789, Light had begun the process of replacing the nibong palm stockade with a more permanent structure made of brick. However, it was not until the onset of the Napoleonic Wars in 1804 that the British authorities, acknowledging the growing threat posed by the French, prioritized the reconstruction of the fort. Under the supervision of Colonel Farquhar, the fort was rebuilt between 1804 and 1810 using brick and stone. Primarily with the aid of Indian convict laborers, the new fort, designed in the star-shaped layout typical of European military architecture of the period, was completed at the substantial cost of 80,000 Spanish dollars. We are now near the southwestern corner of the bastion, home to the so-called chapel, built in 1799. Currently off-limits due to restoration, this chapel is one of Penang's earliest Christian places of worship and witnessed the marriage of Martina Rozells, widow of Captain Francis Light, to Dutch merchant John Timmers. This bronze statue of Captain Francis Light was commissioned by the Penang Municipal Council and installed at Fort Cornwallis in 1938 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of his arrival on the island. Sculpted at Burton's Foundry in 1936, the statue was based on the likeness of Light's eldest son, Colonel William Light, due to the lack of authentic portraits of Francis Light. Initially placed at the southern part of the fort, where Light first landed in 1786, the statue was relocated to the High Court building before the outbreak of the Second World War. In 1965, it was included in the Penang State Museum's collection. In 2003, the statue was returned to its original location at Fort Cornwallis, but the sword that was once part of the statue is missing. It is believed to have been melted down to produce weapons for the Japanese army during their occupation of Penang. Despite its formidable design, Fort Cornwallis never saw combat throughout its operational history. Its primary function gradually shifted from a military stronghold to an administrative center. For example, in 1808, the Supreme Court of Penang was established within the fort, marking the beginning of Malaysia's modern legal system. The court's presence within the fort underscores its role as more than just a defensive structure. It became a center of governance and law for the growing settlement of Penang. One of the fort's most enduring symbols is the Sri Rambai cannon, an ancient piece of artillery with a fascinating history. Cast in 1603 by the Dutch East India Company, the cannon was gifted to the Sultan of Johor before being seized by the Archanese in 1613. After passing through various hands, including being seized by the British in 1871 during a punitive expedition in Kuala Selangor, the cannon was eventually installed at Fort Cornwallis in the 1950s. The Dutch origin of the cannon is evident from the VOC logo on the barrel, letters representing the Dutch abbreviation for the United East Indian Company, better known as the Dutch East India Company. Today, it remains one of the fort's most famous objects, with local folklore attributing magical properties to it, particularly concerning fertility. Another notable feature of the fort is the magazine, a structure specifically designed for the secure storage of ammunition and gunpowder, in line with the era's standards. The magazine is embedded into the surrounding terrain, enhancing its defensive capabilities. Built from bricks, mortar, and other resilient materials, it is designed to withstand explosions and prevent unauthorized access. It also has windows for ventilation to prevent the buildup of explosive gases. The surrounding ditch, created by the magazine's recessed position, provides additional protection against attacks and accidental detonations. As a key historical site within the UNESCO-designated Georgetown area, Fort Cornwallis was undergoing ongoing conservation efforts during our visit. These efforts were focused on preserving the fort's historical integrity, addressing structural concerns, and enhancing the site for visitors. In 1882, a lighthouse was erected at the northeastern corner of the fort. Initially named Fort Point Lighthouse and later renamed Penang Harbour Lighthouse, this 21-meter skeletal steel structure is the second oldest lighthouse in Malaysia. Notably, it also features a ship's mast used for signaling and is one of the few lighthouses in Peninsular Malaysia that no longer serves a navigational purpose, having been renovated in 1914 and 1925. Throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, Fort Cornwallis underwent various modifications, including the addition of a moat, which was later filled in during the 1920s due to a malaria outbreak. Despite these changes, the fort has retained much of its original structure. The fortress is constructed in the European style of a star fort, featuring a bastion with a square floor plan and arrow-shaped bulwarks, angular structures that project outward from the curtain walls. These bulwarks are positioned at each of the four corners, allowing for flanking fire and providing enhanced defense of the curtain walls. In 1977, it was designated an ancient monument and historic site under Malaysia's Antiquities Act, ensuring its preservation for future generations. Today, Fort Cornwallis serves as a popular tourist destination, offering a window into Penang's colonial past. Partially restored, it features exhibits that tell the fort's rich history and enduring significance. As our tour of Fort Cornwallis comes to an end, we take one last look around the historic grounds. Near the exit, a row of old cannon barrels stand silent, their weathered iron surfaces a testament to centuries of history. Once formidable guardians of the fort, these cannons now rest as relics of a bygone era. At the main gate stands a tropical tree covered in the fronds of the dragon scales fern, a tropical epiphytic fern known botanically as Pyrosia piloceles. Although this fern grows on another tree, it is not parasitic. Instead, it derives its energy directly from the sun through the natural process of photosynthesis. Having completed the tour inside the fort, we now decide to walk around the walls on the outside to get a clearer view of the curtain walls and arrow-shaped bulwarks. On the corner stands the Queen Victoria Memorial Clock Tower, a Moorish-style structure built for Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee in 1897. Standing 60 feet tall, each foot represents a year of her reign. From here, behind the construction site, we catch a glimpse of the chapel's roof, which we couldn't visit earlier due to its closure for ongoing restoration work. However, this building, identified as the chapel, likely served a military function. Early reports make no mention of a chapel, suggesting that, due to its sunken location, similar to the ammunition magazine, the building may have originally served a similar storage function. The fence blocking off the construction site from view features information and a timeline detailing the history of the fort and its various layouts over time. By 1814, Fort Cornwallis was equipped with 77 cannons along its brick walls, with an additional 45 held in reserve. We are now at the northern wall of the fort, where you can see some of the 17 remaining cannons pointing towards the sea. The flagstaff, erected adjacent to the fort's lighthouse, was installed to signal the arrival of mail ships to another flagstaff on Penang Hill and to receive signals from Penang Hill when the governor and other dignitaries descended. On this side, beneath the so-called Street of Cannons, is a tunnel that runs through the center of the curtain wall, providing a shortcut for troops and quick, direct access to the sea if needed. At the end of our tour of Fort Cornwallis, we are impressed by the wealth of history contained within this site. The sturdy brick walls and the iconic Sri Rambai cannon provide a strong sense of its colonial past. The sea breeze whispers through the fort's walls as we step away, leaving behind the echoes of stories long past, yet preserved in the enduring spirit of this storied stronghold.